Welcome in. It's time for another edition of the Morning Espresso here on the SDH Network, brought to you as always by Oglethorpe University, Atlanta's premier undergraduate learning experience and soccer powerhouse. I'm Jason Longshore. A rare Wednesday edition of the Espresso. This week has been a little off for me. Doing Atlanta soccer tonight on Monday night meant no espresso on Tuesday morning, which means you get a Wednesday espresso right in the middle of UEFA Champions League, right in the middle of CONCACAF Champions Cup, all kinds of things. We'll see what we can get caught up on today. Let's start with PSG and what Luis Enrique has done with this side. This was a team that, when you looked at them in previous years, when it was Neymar and Mbappe and Messi up top, it was three guys up top and it was seven guys over here. And it was very disconnected. And they were, of course, great in the French league and not as great in Europe because when you're that disconnected, teams can deal with you pretty well. Luis Enrique has made PSG better without the top end talent. They get the job done at Liverpool. They get a goal from Dembele in the first half. They can't find the second, but they outplayed Liverpool. It goes through 120 minutes. It goes to penalties. Gigi Donnarumma with two saves in the shootout, and PSG advance over the club that will win the Premier League this season. And it's down to what Luis Enrique has built with this team. The team's the star. This team was everywhere. They outran Liverpool. And when we talk about Liverpool in the Jurgen Klopp and now Arne Slot era, you're not going to see them get outrun very often. This is a team in PSG with just a really different vibe to them. The attackers, Kavica Kvaratskhelia, he's running back and making defensive plays, and everybody's going nuts. Their midfield, Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha, Joao Neves, three players who aren't huge names, but are perfect for this group. Absolutely perfect for what Luis Enrique wants. And look, if you're an Atlanta United fan and you're looking at how you think Atlanta United will end up looking as a team when they build that chemistry and everything gets in place under Ronnie Dyla, PSG could be a little bit of that model that you hope to see with the nonstop running, the lightning fast counterattacks, the quick attacking play, just a total commitment to energy, to pressing, and to getting forward fast. Liverpool is a team that has done a lot of that, but could not control this matchup against PSG. Luis Enrique is one of the managers in the world who is maybe not getting as much respect as he deserves. He's been brilliant with this group. He was brilliant in this series. I mean, Arne Slot said the second leg was the best game of football he's ever been involved in. Let's see if they can keep it going. We'll talk about who they might face when we get into today's matchups. But let's move over to Liverpool for a minute. Um, PSG, Christian Vieri said he thinks they're going to get to the final. I want to see what the matchups are first, but I think that's very, very possible. Everybody thought Liverpool would get to the final. And now a team that was on the edge of being talked about as a quadruple winner for the first time in England with how big they've been this year. Now they're out of two competitions. They have the League Cup, the Carabao Cup final this weekend. Can they get over this disappointing loss this quickly? And they're probably going to be missing Trent Alexander-Arnold. He was forced off due to injury in the matchup with PSG. It's still an incredible season, even if Liverpool only wins the Premier League. Like, that's not a big deal. But does the vibe change when, what, a month and a half ago, we were talking about, well, they could win the FA Cup and they could win the Champions League and they could win the Leagues Cup and in this? No, because I don't think anybody had Liverpool doing any of this coming into Arne Slot's first season at the club. What he's done has been incredible as well. I hope you don't see the negative things about only winning the Premier League. I hope that you don't see that. Cup competitions and the Champions League, even in the expanded league format, it's still a cup competition. There's a lot of unpredictable things that happen in it. Liverpool was drawn up against a buzzsaw in PSG, and they couldn't get through, even though they were level through two games plus 30 minutes. and penalties decided it. That doesn't define your season. Liverpool's had an amazing year under Arne Slot. PSG was just better on the night in the penalty shootout. All right, let's go over to one of the other contenders in the Champions League, Barcelona. Lamine Yamal is absolutely ridiculous. An awesome goal and an assist from him in the first half hour. Barca gets the win over Benfica. And when we talk about Lamine Yamal and what he's doing, let's compare it to two absolute greats of the game, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Of course, Lamine Yamal is going to get compared to Messi, both being at Barcelona. By his age 17 season, Messi had played 9 times for Barcelona. He had 1 goal. Cristiano Ronaldo had played 31 times for Sporting, had 5 goals and 6 assists. Neither had represented their country yet. At the same stage, Lamine Yamal has 88 games for Barca, 19 goals, 24 assists, 17 caps for Spain, 3 goals, 8 assists, won the European Championship in 2024, was named the best young player, had the best goal of the tournament. It's very early days in the career of Lamine Yamal, but wow, don't take it for granted. Don't take his performance yesterday for granted. This kid is unbelievable, and he could get even better. And here's the thing about Barcelona this year. Best player in the world right now. You got to talk about Lamine Yamal, but you got to talk about his teammate Raphinha. Raphinha's got 27 goals and 19 assists in all competitions this season. 11 goals and 5 assists in the Champions League. Raphinha might be your Ballon d'Or winner, and Lamine Yamal might be second. They've been that good. Barcelona's been that good. Can they be the ones to go and do a treble at least this time around with the Copa del Rey, with La Liga, and with Champions League? Really hard to pick against them at the moment. They have been outstanding. And that's another team that, when you talk about this modern way of playing that is less reliant on pure possession for control, and it's much more about field position, and it's much more about breaking teams with lightning attacks. Barcelona is in that realm as well, and Hansi Flick has done an amazing job in getting everybody to buy in at Barca. Inter and Bayern, they handled their business after good first legs yesterday, so they're on to the quarterfinals. Your previews for today: Arsenal will join them. They're up 7-1 on PSV. We're not going to waste any time there. Aston Villa, 2-goal advantage on Club Bruges. Villa is unbeaten in their last 15 at home. Bruges, they did win 3-1 in Bergamo over Atalanta in the playoff round. If Aston Villa gets through, it would create a very interesting matchup. Unai Emery would get an opportunity for some revenge against PSG, where he was in the past. And if you remember his time at PSG in the Champions League, the epic comeback by Barcelona, that kind of ended it for Emery in Paris. Who was the executioner that day? Luis Enrique, who is now in charge at PSG. Lille and Dortmund, they are 1-1 after the first leg in Germany. I think Lille's going to find a way to get it done. Atleti hosting Real Madrid. Atleti is trailing 2-1. Great record at home against Real Madrid, 2 wins and 1 draw. However, Atleti have never advanced past Real Madrid in a knockout round in their Champions League history. However, Atleti has not lost a Champions League knockout stage game at home in 28 years. Some questions about Kylian Mbappe. According to Marca, he will be starting. He missed the first half of their last training session yesterday. Muscular discomfort, spent the first half hour in the gym doing preventative work to guard against injury. Then he joined his teammates on the pitch as they prepared. So keep an eye on Kylian Mbappe today. He is expected to start. Real Madrid Atleti. That is the big, big game of the day. Let's go to Conca Champions, and it was not a good day for Major League Soccer sides. Seattle lost 4-1 to Cruz Azul. It was 2-1, which meant Seattle was 1 goal away in the 75th minute when Danny Musovski scored. Cruz Azul scored twice late. They put things away. This was Seattle's first loss in CONCACAF play since 2018, a 13-match unbeaten streak, the longest for any MLS team in the competition's history. Columbus, they were trailing 3-0 to LAFC after the first leg. They made them sweat. It was 3-2 at halftime on aggregate, but Hugo Lloris stood on his head in the second half, made a few just ridiculous saves. Denny Boanga scored with basically the last touch of the game, the second to last touch, because Columbus had to kick off, and LAFC gets through. Tigres and Cincinnati. Cincinnati scored in the 18th minute, and a second half collapse sends them out of the competition for the second year in a row. Three goals in 8 minutes for Tigres, and they go through 4-2 on aggregate. Today, Monterrey, they host Vancouver at Santos Laguna Stadium. Thanks, Shakira. Tied 1-1 going into the second leg. LA Galaxy, they host Herediano in Carson, California. The Galaxy are trailing 1-0 going into the second leg, and they have not won a competitive match in 2025 as of yet. Alianza Lima, as we go down to South America in the Copa Libertadores, they had to go through all three preliminary stages to get to the Copa Libertadores group stage, and they did. They knocked out Boca Juniors. They survived yesterday in the third preliminary phase, and they will be in the group round. Watch out for more news on this. A person that we've talked about quite a bit over the last couple of months, Foster Gillette. I've told everybody in Argentina to run in the other direction when he shows up. Well, River Plate did not run in the other direction initially. They tried to do a deal with him over a transfer of Rodrigo Villagra, who is now playing at CSKA Moscow in Russia, because that was the last place they could find to get somebody to take him and actually cut a check that was real and not fake promises. They took far less money for that than he would have been worth, and they are suing Foster Gillette over that loss of value due to the promises that were not kept by Gillette. That's going to be an interesting to watch in the Argentine court system. If you get a chance, I highly recommend you sit down and watch the Sir James Ratcliffe interview with Gary Neville on Gary Neville's podcast platform. You can watch it on YouTube. Watch the video too. I think it's important to see the video rather than just listen to the audio. I don't think he comes off very well here. It's kind of shocking in some ways. I also think, look, you have some time. I think one of the clips that has made the rounds is Gary Neville's suggestion about how to raise money for former players rather than just cut them from payrolls. You have time to think of that maybe they did not in the moment that they decided to cut. The idea is correct, though, that they should have been thinking of these sorts of things, because the PR hits that Manchester United has taken for trying to trim budgets are substantial. And it's all been very poorly handled, extremely poorly handled. However, it's also true, and it was talked about in the interview, that Manchester United were on the verge of running out of cash on hand, even though they are one of the highest revenue generating clubs in the world, top three. But they didn't have cash on hand. They have a ton of debt. Oh, yeah, by the way, and then they announced plans to build a new 100,000 seat stadium. How is this all going to work? They're £1 billion or so in debt, but they're going to start a £2 billion project. How? They cut lunches for staff, but they're going to build a $2 billion stadium. How? I, I mean, look, if it's not going to be paid for by the Glazers, which they've taken money out of the club and not put money in, even though you had to cut free lunches, even though you had to cut ambassador contracts for legends like Sir Alex Ferguson and former players, you had to do all that. But the Glazers are now going to put money in for the stadium. Sure, whatever. Sir James Ratcliffe, his company, INEOS, are they going to put money in? No. I mean, they didn't do it to save the free lunches. So, okay. You're going to have to bring in money from loans. You're already weighed down by debt. So, good luck, I guess. It's just all mind blowing that this is where Manchester United is. And look, here's the thing: if you are going to go into more debt to try to build a $2 billion stadium, how are you going to be able to compete on the field in the Premier League where you're already not good? Ruben Amorim better be a wizard or a warlock or something, because he's not going to have a whole lot of talent to work with, because they're not going to be able to go spend any money on it, because it's all going to go to debt. I don't know. I just smile and nod at this point. U.S. men's national team, the roster's out for the CONCACAF Nations League semifinals and finals. Some surprises: no Alex Zendejas from Club America, no Brendan Aronson, no Paxton Aronson. It's a lot of competition for spots. I think that's something that Pochettino made clear yesterday, and this is a good thing. Guys don't just get spots and keep spots anymore. You got to be playing well, and you got to be playing, and it's not about what level you are according to some mythical ranking of leagues. Patrick Agumon, Brian White, Diego Luna, all had great January camps, all are part of this squad. Mauricio Pochettino is going to pick the players that he thinks are going to give him the best chance to win. He doesn't really care about anybody's rankings or anybody else's thoughts. Good on him. Now, go win. That's, of course, what has to happen when you do that. But good on him for picking the players that he thinks are the best right now for this competition. And good on U.S. Soccer to have this level of depth across the board right now, where you've got a Brian White, a Patrick Agumon, a Josh Sargent, all guys who are playing very, very well at the moment. You've got a lot of options. This is good. Let's go over to England to wrap up this edition of the Morning Espresso. The Women's Super League, Manchester City, they fired their manager and they brought back an old favorite who you will know from Major League Soccer. Gareth Taylor was fired 5 days before the League Cup final match against Chelsea, which is coming up this weekend. This was confirmed on Monday. Uh, Fourth in the Women's Super League, 12 points behind Chelsea. Not good enough, according to Charlotte O'Neill, the managing director of Manchester City Women. So Nick Cushing comes back in to take over for the rest of the season. He had great success with Manchester City Women before making the move to Major League Soccer, first as an assistant for Ronnie Dyla, and then taking over NYC before he was let go after last season. Manchester City on their women's side is a club with a lot of ambition. 12 points back, not good enough. Little surprising that you do it in the week of the League Cup final match. I don't think that's a good route for success. Typically, that doesn't work. Remember, Jose Mourinho fired before a cup final for Tottenham. I think it creates a lot of uncertainty in the squad and makes it harder to win that cup final match. But as we saw, and we go back to Manchester United, Eric Ten Hag won the FA Cup. That got him longer at the club, and now everybody agrees that that was a mistake. So you have to make your decisions and not get hung up by the immediate results. I think you probably could have gotten through the cup final here and then made the decision. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes for Manchester City women against Chelsea in the League Cup final this weekend. That's going to do it for us for this edition of the Morning Espresso. We'll be back tomorrow to recap everything from Champions League, to recap Conca Champions, and to start getting you ready for what's going to be a big weekend here in Atlanta with Inter Miami coming to town. They will be in Jamaica tomorrow. We'll talk about all of that on tomorrow's edition of the Morning Espresso, brought to you by Oglethorpe University.